you have a good point, and I think all people should be treated equally. So if they're doing no harm to anybody and they're not taxed, but quite frankly, the average corporation is taxable. You may be talking about foundations and all. But I would argue the case that if somebody does well because they don't pay taxes, fine, lower the taxes on the people who are paying taxes. That's my whole argument, is that we should reduce spending so drastically here that we can get rid of the income tax. And you don't have to worry about who's getting the shaft, who's getting the bad deal and the good deal in the tax code because it's too complicated to understand. So we want a small government. We want a constitutional size government, which means we could get rid of the income tax. We've only had the income tax since 1913, and it's only because of the welfare system and the wars that are going on is the reason we need this income tax. So you point out an inequity, and I think that's right, but I would equalize things by making sure that nobody has to pay taxes.
For Congressman Ron Paul next, Arlington, Texas, independent line.
Good morning there, Texas Straight Talk. This is Tom Pearson from Arlington, and I hope you've read a few of those 60 or 70 emails I've sent you. With your permission, I'm going to make a statement, quote a statement that was made in 1992, and then I'm going to restate it and paraphrase. Any like-minded group acting in concert can steal anything they want and get away with it. Then paraphrase, any like-minded group, including corrupt corporatists and corrupt politicians acting in concerted collusion, can steal anything they want, including a nation, simply by rewriting the laws and making one-sided laws. See if you can answer, give me a little comment on that. I'd be very interested to hear it.
Well, I think you're talking about what happens when government gets to control over our lives and over the economy, that the special interests move in. Even though some programs are designed to help poor people, say to provide houses for poor people, lo and behold, the builders and the contractors and the real estate people and everybody else seem to benefit from this, and then the poor people end up losing their mortgages. So no, once the government is involved in the redistribution of wealth, there will always be special interests who will work to get an advantage. That is the reason you want minimal government. The role of government ought to be to provide a sound currency, to provide freedom in the marketplace, to make sure people follow through on their contracts, nobody can commit fraud, and nobody can commit violence. And then you will solve that problem of people horning in. But quite frankly, I think the person who does the most stealing is the government itself, because the governments have no right to do anything that you or I can't do. If we can't steal from our neighbor, the government has no right to come in and take from us through a tax code, take money from productive citizens and give it to non-productive citizens. And that's more or less exactly what the bailout is doing today. There's still some productivity going on in this country. But so if we appropriate $800 billion like the House did yesterday, that has to come out of the pockets of the few people left that are still producing. Governments have nothing. They produce nothing. They can't create jobs. All they can do is shuffle the cards, and that's what invites these people to come in and fight for a special benefit.
What does the unanimity of your House colleagues suggest about the future of your party?
Well, it's encouraging, but of course, it's a little bit, maybe a little late. I mean, we shouldn't have been supporting the Bush spending programs. I mean, if Bush had proposed some of these, like last year, the first stimulus package, a lot of Republicans, maybe certainly not every Republican voted against it. They should have all been voting against the Republican stimulus programs too. But the fact now that it is easier, there's no doubt it's easier for Republicans to be fiscal conservatives when they don't have to deal with the budget. So we stuck together. So I would say it was a positive, but I still believe that there's a fair amount of cynicism about there and why the base of the Republican Party didn't turn out so well this year, because they say, well, you guys talk conservative, but what do you do? Look at what you gave us. You gave us all this debt. You expanded the Department of Education and with no child left behind, and prescription drug programs, and Sarbanes-Oxley regulation and McCain-Feingold regulations. So that's why they lost confidence in the Republican Party. But I would say the fact that we stuck together yesterday should give us a little encouragement. But we have a long way to go to get the confidence back of our Republican base.
Does the race for chairmanship of the Republican Party give you good feelings, or are you concerned?
probably not too relevant.
You haven't been listening to the arguments made by the leaders?
Yeah, I have, and it was interesting. In one of the times they got together, they were asked jointly, what are you going to do with the Ron Paul Republicans, the ones who really believe in the Constitution and sound money and looking at all these problems? And each one answered very favorably. They say, oh, we got to build our party, but of course that didn't happen, a few months ago. But I think that is encouraging too. Those of us who want small government, sound money, personal liberties, a change in our foreign policy, yes, we are getting more attention, and I think they now know, at least they pay lip service, and they say, well, that group of individuals are credible, and we should pay attention. But all those individuals who are running are sort of representing the status quo. But that status quo may be what we saw on the House floor yesterday. The status quo now for the Republicans is to vote our convictions and vote against big spending. So like I said, that gives me some sort of encouragement.
On the Ron Paul Republicans, we've learned in the past couple weeks that the White House will continue to use social networking tools to with a group outside the White House, but it's all those names they gathered during the election that they're going to stay in touch with to help advance their policies. Yesterday, Friends of Hillary Clinton announced outside group it was going to use the base. My question is, what about the Ron Paul Republicans? What are you doing to stay in touch with them and to promote the ideas that you believe are appropriate for the economy?
Well, we had a continuation of the campaign. It's called Campaign for Liberty. And somebody said, well, when did that start? And I said, about 30 years ago, because that's essentially what I've been doing since I first ran for Congress in the 70s, campaigning for liberty, because that is the driving motive I have, is to explain and defend the position that individual liberty is the key to a prosperous nation. And Campaign for Liberty is a national organization now, and it does a lot of work on campuses, and the whole purpose is to present to the people a strict adherence to the Constitution, a foreign policy which was at one time advised by Republicans like Robert Taft. It should be non-interventionist, mind our own business, no policing in the world, and no interference in the internal affairs of other nations, something the founders talked about. It talks about free market economics and sound money, but it also talks about personal liberties. There's no reason in the world why Republicans can't be civil libertarians and, keep the government, not only out of our wallets, but out of our bedrooms too. And believe me, that is a very popular program on our campuses today.
Do you hope to do this in a way to change the Republican Party, or are you thinking about third-party affiliation?
Whatever
happens?
I don't think of it in a party way, because some of our people that worked in our campaign went to the Libertarian Party. Right. Most went to the Republican Party. Some ran as Democrats. I mean, we talk about this being a revolution. In a way, it's the restoration of the revolution. If it's a true revolution, it's an intellectual revolution. It will influence everybody. Because a lot of these views I've already expressed are very attractive to liberal Democrats. They like civil liberties. And a lot of Democrats, are arguing the case that we drop too many bombs on other people and uses up all our money. I make the case that says that, why should we be bombing these nations and then feel compelled to rebuild them? At the same time, our infrastructure is falling down. So this is very attractive to liberal Democrats as well as conservative Republicans.
Atlanta, go ahead, please. Republican line.
Mr. Paul, thank you for being on C-SPAN today, and thank C-SPAN for being around. I really appreciate you guys. I was encouraged earlier to hear that you do support the ideas that are behind the fair tax with repealing of the payroll taxes. I think that would be the most direct stimulus that the government could allow us, money straight into our pockets. I guess you kind of already answered that question, but what I would like to just say is everybody is screaming right now for bipartisanship. It's the Democrats and Mr. Obama. And I think if they were truly behind that, they could go ahead and split this $1 trillion that they got on the board. They could go ahead and give 54%. Since he won 54% of the vote, they could take 54% of that and allow the Republicans to take the other 46% and put that behind true stimulus to the people in form of a payroll deduction in payroll taxes.
Thank you.
Yes, I think that's good. We should reduce taxes, and that's the best place for the money to be, is back in the hands of the people who are productive, and they know better how to spend the money than we do. But you mentioned cutting the payroll taxes, and that's fine. I'm for that, but you got to cut the spending.